What's going on? What's going on, my people? What's going on? What's going on, everybody? On blessed, this is blessed Memorial Day. Hope everybody's all well. So make sure we good to go. Y'all good? Let's see. It's been a long time coming. This is a pop-up Duce Discussions. So it's a little bit different from for those who see me on TikTok. I do the biblical breakdown that's coming back. But just in honor of Memorial Day, I want to do a pop-up, if you will. It's been a while. Do a pop-up of like they call it, the how you would say, um Duce Discussions. So those who used to follow, unfortunately, the account got taken down for some crazy stuff, but but this is a pop-up of Duce Discussions, where it's an educational podcast. So just bringing this back, pop-up. So for those who saw me with the biblical breakdown, they'll come back. They'll be back shortly. But today is Duce Discussions. Duce Discussions is basically the educational side of knowing history of American history, the culture, and different things to expand our minds. Amen. So it's just so it's just been a while. So uh, and I had, for those who saw, time I had a co-host, my bro. I think he'll be on here in a second. So it's kind of it had to pop up. Let's see. And if it cuts out, just be back with you shortly. Oh, everybody hear me okay? Let me see. And also too, I haven't went on live on Facebook in a while too. So y'all bad with me. So But yeah, man, we let's see here. Okay. But everybody know about Memorial Day, so we can get started. Like I said, this podcast was to expand the mind of the masses. I believe that's what we had. But um, expound the mind of the masses, one discussion at a time. So yeah, I would like to welcome y'all to Duce Discussions. Like, what is that? So, like I said, I call him the lyrical undertaker, but he'll be on shortly. But we can go ahead and get started. Just a little bit, just a little pop up, educational, about understanding Memorial Day and the history of Memorial Day. So it's not just you know, it's a time to reflect on the lives that were lost, but also it's a time to reflect, on, you know, just understand the whole thing behind Memorial Day. A little parched this evening, so bear with me, y'all. So we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Cool. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna be all right. So we're gonna be all right. Okay. So with that said this discussion, we're gonna talk about Memorial Day and the history of Memorial Day. So this is Duce Discussions. Now, for those who saw the biblical breakdown, that'll be on coming back soon. But this is a special pop-up episode of um, Duce Discussions. And it started. So, but for those who didn't know, did you know that Memorial Day used to be known as Decoration Day. Yes, Decoration Day. Like, man, what is that? What is that? We can put in, let's see. Uh, let's see. Okay. Yeah. There's a new poll up. So, anybody know that Memorial Day used to be Decoration Day? Let me know. It's a poll up, so if you see the poll, just if you did or if you didn't. So that'll be interesting to know and understand. So let's see. So decorations that just to break down those who didn't know, Memorial Day used to be for those who don't know who I am, I'm Duce Wilson, one of the hosts of Duce Discussions. And they're talking about Decoration Day, right? So it's the precursor. It was the precursor to the modern day Memorial Day of today. It holds a uh, nuisance and contested place in American history, while often associated with a singular legislative act of 1868. Yes, that was 3 years after the last slave found out they were free. The truth of the holiday's origins lies in a decentralized grassroots movement that emerged immediately following the conclusion of the American Civil War. So the contested origins of it is, for decades, the story of Declaration Day was often framed solely through the lens of General John A. Logan and the Grand Army of the Republic. However, modern historical research acknowledges that the tradition of decorating graves originated simultaneously in various locations throughout the South and North as communities sought to process the unprecedented uh, predicated scales of death. It was a lot, y'all. So we look at the key claims you see, like in Charleston, South Carolina, in 1865. The context behind that was the freedom of African Americans and uh, Caucasian missionaries honored Union prisoners of war buried in a massive grave. Establishing one of the earliest recorded instances of a decoration day. So to get that understanding of that, what the idea, what decoration day was, which is now known as Memorial Day. Another key place or key claimant of origin would be Waterloo, New York, in 1866. Widely recognized as a major early observance where townspeople closed businesses to decorate veterans' graves. So that happened in Waterloo, New York. And then there was a such thing called General Order Number 11, which was established in 1868. This was the formalizing act that brought the movement into the national consciousness as a structured annual event. Kind of like how Memorial Day is now today. And General Order Number 11, and uh, you have to under how that intertwines with nationalization. On May 5th, 1868, Major General um, John A. Logan, he was the commander of the Grand Army of the Republic. He issued a General Order Number 11. This directive designated May 30th, 1868, as a day to, uh, I guess you say, strew with flowers or otherwise decorate the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country. Um, and that's how it is. And then the significance of May 30th. So who knew that is originally designated for May 30th. So the historians often point out that the date May 30th was not chosen for a specific anniversary of a battle, but for practical reasons. It was intended to ensure that flowers, a symbol of renewal and mourning, would be in full bloom throughout the country for the decorations. Now, how it evolved and semantic shift of it all. Uh, the transition from Declaration Day to Memorial Day was a gradual process that mirrored the shifting American consciousness. So, in a way, if you look at broadening the scope, initially focused on the Civil War, the day expanded after World War I to include all American casualties of war. And then we look at it look at it as a legislative change. The Uniform Monday Holiday Act of 1968, which took effect in 1971. Uh, let me see. So the the transition of the Declaration Day to what's going on, my brother?
What's going on, man?
What's going on with you? I said I had to let the people know we back for a pop up. We back for a pop up. Pop
Yes,
up. It's been a
sir.
long time. It's been a
Yes,
long
sir.
time. Should never left you without a dope
Without
beat to
those
step
beat
to.
the step to.
It
Yes,
was good.
sir.
And so y'all, this is the for those we couldn't do a pop up without the original co-host. So, ladies and gentlemen, let him introduce himself before we go even further.
Oh man, it's been such a long time, but want to thank everybody. It's a local undertaking Episcopal High Consciousness. First and foremost, man, I want to thank my brother Duce for coming up with this idea of sharing this platform and this message to each one of our brothers and sisters because these are the type of discussions that we need to have. And it's a shame that many of our people don't choose to really promote the education that we need to advance as a people. And I really appreciate Brother Deuce himself, working with him for many years and other stuff,
Yeah.
just imparting his knowledge and allowing me to impart my knowledge, to not only my followers, but to his followers as well, so we can build a union and unite our people so we can become more educated and more stable black men and women.
Yep. Because our people do perish from the lack of knowledge.
Come
So,
on.
right. So, most definitely. So, we've came up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Came up a little bit, but here we are. Here we
Yes,
are. So I
indeed.
was talking about the Decoration Day and the significance of May 30th,
Okay.
and so just covered some of that stuff and how for those who now just coming into as well, we was talking about how the the General Order Number 11 and nationalization came to part. So on May 5th, 1868, Major General John A. Logan. This is the stuff that they don't teach in school, people. Um, he was the commander of the Grand Army of the Republic, which is the GAR. Issued General Order Number 11. This directive designated May 30th, 1868, as a day to strew with flowers or otherwise decorate the graves and comrades who died in defense of their
Mm,
country. And then the significance also of May 30th. Historians often point out that the date May 30th was not chosen for a specific anniversary of a battle, but for practical reasons. Um, tended to ensure flowers, a symbol of renewal and mourning, would be in full uh, bloom throughout the country for the decorations. So they want to make sure Monday, so the 30th, by May the 30th, all flowers will be in bloom so they can, you know, put those on the grave. And so now we're looking at the evolution of what came from Decoration Day, which came from the African American soldiers. Y'all can also look that up too as well, and which came and blossomed to become Memorial Day, which is today. And it was a gradual process that mirrored the shifting American consciousness. So they wanted to broaden the scope. So, and a lot of times, if I can go further, there was a time when the African American soldiers were fighting, and they don't. Anybody seen that movie Glory about with Denzel Washington? Where they was
talk
like
about it.
they was with the African American soldiers, they was just nothing. They were just piling them up, piling their bodies up. So instead of them just dumped off in the field somewhere, uh, the African American soldiers that were living came, and then others want to honor them by coming up with a day to celebrate them, which was the origin of Decoration Day. Because what
Come
they
on.
did is instead of just dumping them off in just a ditch, they gave each soldier a proper burial and decorated their graves.
Mm.
So for those who just gathered that info, so if you didn't know, now you know. That's why I said, like I said, I think our theme back in the day was educating the educating the masses, one discussion at a time. So, see your phone dropping, brother. Um, so, but yeah, um, so as that go for say, looking at how the discussion uh, goes from the transaction from Decoration Day to Memorial Day. Um, like I said, what they want to do is it was initially focused on the Civil War, but what they want to do, of course, but the day expanded after World War I to include all American casualties of war. Um, and then the legislative mix of it, I had to get in there. So it's called the Uniform Monday Holiday Act of 1968. You can look this up for those who's watching. You can look this up, which took effect in 1971. Moved the holiday to the last Monday in May. So they just made it a uniform instead of May 30th. They moved it to the last Monday of the month. That's what we're experiencing today. The last Monday of the month is is Memorial Day, and that's what they created that as. Well, what was that? Okay, yeah, and this effectively separated the day from its historical date. A move some historians argue diluted the connection to the original Decoration Day traditions. So there was traditions when they decided to change the day and said we're gonna make it the last, just random, we're gonna make it the last Monday, regardless of the date. We're just gonna make it the last Monday of May, and we're gonna do that. So that's what they decided. They said they were gonna do, and what happened was some felt that it was gonna dilute it. It was gonna dilute the importance of it, and it's gonna dilute the connection to the original Declaration Day traditions. Also, if y'all hear music in the background, I don't own the rights to this music that's playing in the background. Anyway, so I just wanted to put that in there. I forgot I had to remember what platform I'm on. But also, uh, one thing we also want to understand is while Memorial Day began appearing in documents as early as the 1880s, ain't that something? Basically, they hurry up and sped that up. The name was not uh, codified by federal law until 1967. That's a long time. That's a long time. So it was showing in the documents. It's supposed to be in the decoration. We told you where the origin came from. So by them coming up with that in the 1800s, after after the last slave was realized they was free, after they came up with that, it was I want it looks like it was almost 100 years, basically almost 80. We're looking at 80 years before it had codified by federal law. It wasn't codified by federal law until 1967. Are you serious? Y'all think about that. Somebody can go through somebody can just be born when that first happened, and they would be 80 when it finally gets written in the law. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? And just for those who didn't know, that the truth, like I said, the truth of the Decoration Day is that it began as a profound, localized act of communal mourning. It was not originally a federal mandate, but a spontaneous reaction to the destruction of war. It reminds us that memory is a living practice, evolving with each generation to honor the cost of the nation's existence. I could go deeper for that part, but that'd be on another thing, because if we really want to get to the nuts and bolts of the nation's beginning, that's another whole podcast that y'all missed out years ago that we will have to bring back. Um, um, but one thing out before I finish off too, for was the understanding that um, for those who don't know, that Memorial Day honors those who died in military service. It is a day of national mourning and reflection on the ultimate sacrifice. Veterans Day honors all military veterans, both living and deceased, who served honorably in the United States Armed Forces. So, for those in the new generation that don't know, that is the difference. So, I just wanted to, and I want y'all to remember these key dates. And the years 1866 through 1868, which is the grassroots decoration efforts occur in various communities across the North and South. May 5th, 1868, General John A. Logan issues General Order Number 11. That's General Order Number 11, establishing a national decoration day. And then May 30th, 1868, just 25 days later, the first official national observance held at Arlington National Cemetery. And then in 1968, which is crazy. Yeah, that's a whole 100 years. So that's so Congress passes the Uniform Monday Holiday Act to make it um, the last Monday of May. So man, I hope this has helped somebody. So I hope this was good for people. Appreciate everybody popping on. And my brother, I don't know if you would have something to share, comment about some stuff about Memorial Day or uh, Decoration Day. Say it again. I think you're muted.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Yeah, I was saying, you could keep discussing. I'm trying to get my computer acting right. I don't know, for some reason it just froze up for some reason.
Okay. But for those who didn't know, but that's why it's important, y'all, to know, do the research for yourself, man, because a lot of stuff we learned out of school about some stuff that we didn't know. Um, just like Black History Month, they always covered certain people, but there was hundreds and hundreds more inventions, and you would hear you would have hear the argument. Of course, we try to be cordial with one another. Love one to come together, but sometimes it's those conversations that upset you when you hear somebody who's um, I won't be nice, but they're like, oh, y'all be nothing without such and such, or they say go back to, they'll say either go back to Africa and all stuff. Like, man, we been here,
Come
we
on,
been here. Like, some of us didn't come on the boat, we were here. It's like, matter of fact, we were here, y'all came over. Anyway,
teach them.
it was just like, but it's so many inventions. If you look at the inventions, uh the central heat. What was her name? That quick. Um, and then the like the security systems. Let's look at George Washington Carver. All they said, oh, he did something with the peanut, but it took us to get out of school and unbrainwash. I hate to say it like that, but unbrainwash ourselves into finding out that he actually developed 300 different ways for a peanut. Like you use for energy and different ways to use a peanut and to benefit the body, the industry, to make money off the peanut, the crop peanut. But all we heard in school is he invented stuff with the peanuts and salted peanuts and stuff like that. Just like simple, but not going into detail that he did so much more with peanuts. Just like we have creator of the ironing board.
Come
Ironing
on.
board.
Come on.
So it's like stuff that they won't tell you till. So you gotta. That's why we tell you, family, do the research yourself. I can tell you, but like I said, I want you to uh know for yourself as well. So I just don't want to say nothing, and like, but I want you to do the research yourself too as well. Uh, there's so many. Uh, let's see, give you some more. Black inventors, um, and their inventions. Uh, let's see, and maybe I'll give you a list of 20, maybe. But there's a so everybody knew about Thomas Edison, but if it wasn't for Louis Latimer, we wouldn't have no lights
Talk about it.
because Thomas Edison used a paper. I believe it was a paper firmament that would burn the light for minutes. But Latimer developed a carbon filament that burned for days, for hours and days. Just to give y'all an example, man, it's like whatever you say what you want, but I say black is beautiful, huh? And it's
Come on.
and they creative too, huh? So it's
Yes,
beautiful, but
sir.
it's creative because we got just to run off quick. If it wasn't okay, let's go. Let's go in. Let's get them. Let's dive deep into it just a little bit. We're gonna just and then we're gonna come on out. We're gonna come on out just a little bit. We got Garrett Morgan. He invented the three position traffic light and the gas mask. If it wasn't for him, people couldn't go in and save like firefighters, depending on gas masks. Um, um, Elijah McCoy. That's where you hear the term the real McCoy. He invented the auto lubricating cup. He revolutionized the railroad industry by um, um, inventing a device that continuously oiled engine parts while the train was still moving. This eliminated frequent maintenance stops and birthed the popular idiom, the real McCoy, because engineers refused to buy cheap, inferior imitations. Also, who we just said before, we just brought him up, Louis Latimer, the carbon light bulb filament. And like I said, while Thomas Edison famously invented um, uh, that light bulb, it was him that came in the back burner that made it electric lighting affordable and practical for homes and public streets. Uh, Man, we don't stop there. Granville Woods, he invented the induction telegraph. They referred to him as the Black Thomas Edison. Edison holds dozens of patents. His induction telegraph system allowed moving trains to communicate with stations and each other a massive breakthrough through that prevented countless railway collisions. Dr. Patricia Bath, the laser Fasco probe. Um, so she helped with the study and help increase and evolutionize the removing cataracts from the eyes. Come on, man. Everybody heard of Madam CJ Walker, who specialized in hair care products in the Walker method. We don't even have to stop there. Richard Spikes, the automatic gear shift and directional turn signal. Yeah, that turn signal that you in the car. That's him. That's him.
Talk
That's
about
him.
tour.
That's him. Spike. So those spikes was he was a prolific inventor whose automatic enhancements fundamentally shaped modern vehicles. He also patented an automatic brake safety system and improved a beer keg tap and a gear shifting system still conceptually used in buses. So I mean, man, you got Frederick McKinley Jones, the mobile refrigeration unit.
Hmm.
For those who didn't know, that's Thermo King. Anybody heard of Thermo King? That was him. He lived between 1893 and 1961. He designed a roof-mounted cooling system for long-haul trucks, allowing perishable food, medicine, and blood plasma to be transported long distances without spoiling. Yes, it was created by a black man. This innovation transformed global supply chains and gave birth to the frozen food industry. Oh, and we can't go about without that's her name, Alice H. Parker, the inventor of the gas heating furnace. In 1919, Parker patented a central heating system fueled by natural gas. It was the first designed to draw cold air, heat it, and distribute it to different rooms via ducts, laying the blueprint for modern residential uh, central HVAC systems. Come on, man.
Mm.
Uh, uh, yeah. Marie Van Brittan Brown. Those don't know who she is. She passed away in 1990, but she was born in 1922. Lived to 1999. She was the inventor of the home security system. Yes, that was her. Living in a high crime neighborhood with slow police response times, Brown created a system involving a motorized camera peephole and a two-way microphone communication system, a TV monitor, and a remote controlled door lock, creating the blueprint for all modern smart home security systems. One of the saddest inventions is the way it went down was Charles Drew. His invention was the large-scale blood banks and blood plasma preservation. Dr. Drew discovered that separating red blood cells from liquid plasma allowed blood to be stored and safely used up to a week later. His Blood for Britain program during World War II saved thousands of lives and revolutionized emergency transfusion medicine. You know what's messed up about that with him? No, he got somebody had wrecked his car. He was into a wreck. Somebody cut him off, and he was in a wreck, and he needed the exact same blood transfusion. And because
Hmm.
of his color of his skin, they sat there and let him die. The thing that he
Ironic.
invented could have saved him, but because the color of his skin. Hmm.
Mm.
Mm-mm. Anyway, just want y'all to think about that. Be that so I don't want to hear nobody say y'all need to get over it. No, it wasn't that long ago. Matter of
Yes,
fact, about
sir.
everybody talking about the voting thing. Did you know it hasn't been even 100 years since we had the right to actually vote, and then people just go out and throwing it, voting for whoever they want to, and then realize that's why somebody. I'm just gonna talk in code. That's why somebody in the office said Y'all come out and vote. If y'all vote for me, this will be the last time y'all voting, not knowing that that person was basically trying to take away your voting rights. But anyway, yeah, that I can get on that. But yeah,
Yeah, I got the information pulled up finally.
okay, okay, give it up to bro. Give it up, bro. He gonna
Man,
bless us
first
with
of all,
some knowledge.
let's give a hand to Brother Deuce, man. Just discussing that, man. That was beautiful, man. Always a pleasure to hear from my brother. But
All right.
well, I want to get into real quick, since we're talking on discussion of Memorial Day, real quick. This is about the origins of it. Now, I wish they gave lot more information on it, but we're going to start it off from here. This is from Celebrating the Black History of Memorial Day by sdari.org. So it says that the April 1901, the dedication of General John A. Logan Memorial. Speakers like President William McKinley and the New York Senator Chauncey Depew spoke of the nation's debt to General Logan for his General Order Number 11, which Brother Deuce just mentioned earlier, which in 1868 formalized the annual floor and decoration of graves on Memorial Day, also referred to, like Brother Deuce just mentioned, Decoration Day.
Mm-hmm.
While there is historical debate over where and when the very first observation of Memorial Day took place, one of the earliest recorded observations of the holiday is indisputably took place in Charleston, South Carolina, in the closing days of the Civil War. On May 1st, 1865, the free people of Charleston gathered at the old racetrack to decorate the graves of 257 Union prisoners of war who had been hastily buried by a retreating Confederate army. The largely African American crowd watched the men of the 35th and the 104th United States Colored Troops, along with the famed 54 Massachusetts Infantry Regiment, to perform drills before listening to speeches, addressing the meaning of the long and bloody war. When the ceremonies were finished, the crowd dispersed to lay flowers on the graves of the men who had died for the Union and for liberty. The 55th Massachusetts Colored Regiment, singing in the streets of Charleston, South Carolina on February 21st, 1865, and Union soldiers who advanced into Charleston, most of whom who were members of the 21st United States Colored Infantry, were welcomed by former slaves celebrating their freedom. Now, if we notice and understand that a lot of this, what it's talking about Memorial Day, also gave birth to one of the next biggest holidays that's coming up, which is Juneteenth. Because Juneteenth was a celebration of freed slaves after the Civil War during slavery in Texas. So this is one of the major holidays that they don't want to give credit to us for, so that we will remember all of our veterans when they fought for a country that did not appreciate them and still does not appreciate them during this time. But I wanted to touch on that and then also touch into what happened after the Civil War a little bit, and how Reconstruction also helped deter and destroy a lot what Black people had built during that time. So this is an article by Time Magazine. It says how Reconstruction still shapes American racism. So let's see. Let me see. Reconstruction, the period in American history that followed the Civil War, was an era filled with great hope and expectations, but it proved far too short to ensure a successful transition from bondage to free labor for almost 4 million Black human beings who have been born into slavery. In the U.S. during Reconstruction, the U.S. government maintained an active presence in the former Confederate states to protect the rights of newly freed slaves and to help them, however incompletely, on the path to becoming full citizens. A little more than a decade later, the era came to an end when contested president election of 1876 was resolved by trading the electoral votes of South Carolina, Louisiana, and Florida for the removal of federal troops for the last southern state houses. Today, many of us know precious little about what happened during those years, but regardless of its brevity, Reconstruction remains one of the most pivotal eras in the history of race relations in American history, and probably the most misunderstood. It's very misunderstood. Reconstruction was fundamentally about who got to be an American citizen. It was in that period that the Constitution was amended to establish birthright citizenship through the 14th Amendment. Now, for those of you who may not understand what the 14th Amendment was about, I'm just going to give you a little quick rundown, real quick, and then we'll get back into the article. Now, in 1860, 68 when the 14th Amendment was processed. The 14th Amendment, one of the first section was about citizenship, due process, and equal protection. What it was formulated supposedly for was to establish birthright citizenship and assuring that all persons, whether born or naturalized inside the United States, become citizens. It prevented states, supposed to prevent states from restricting privileges or immunities of citizens, and it contained the due process and equal protection clauses. In the second section of it, it also had the appointment of representatives. So it's supposed to change the way the seats of the House of Representatives are allocated. But it was abolished due to the three-fifths compromise, which we'll get into a little later, which was counting the whole number of persons in each state and provided penalties for states that denied the right to vote to eligible male citizens. And the third section of it was a disqualification from holding office. So that bars anyone who previously took an oath to uphold the Constitution and then engaged in insurrection or rebellion from holding federal, state, or office. But we all know because of Reconstruction and because of black codes and other laws, this disbanded the 14th Amendment and kept a lot of black people from getting in office. Because if we really do the history, which I might get into if we have time today, there were a lot of black political officials that were going on during this time during the Reconstruction era that helped to build what we know as some of the modern day black Wall Streets, black Meccas, and other stuff that really helped our people that were deliberately taken away, like Brother Deuce was saying about the voting power. See, our ancestors understood that it wasn't just voting itself that gave power with it, but it was voting plus the collection of unity and building business and commerce that helped establish the Black Wall Streets and the different all black towns that me and Brother Deuce discussed back here, which we will recover eventually. All right, now let's get back into the article. All right, let's see. Okay. The issues central to Reconstruction, citizenship, voting rights, and terrorist violence, and the relationship between economic and political democracy continue to rule our society and politics today, making an understanding of Reconstruction even more vital. A key lesson of Reconstruction of its violent racist rollback is the achievements thought permanent can be overturned and rights can never be taken for granted. By 1877, in a climate of economic crisis, the cost of protecting the freedoms of African Americans became a price that the American government was no longer willing to pay. The long road began in earnest the period of retrenchment, voter suppression, Jim Crow segregation, and quasi re enslavement that was called by white Southerners, ironically, redemption. Ain't no ironically. As a word, Frederick Douglass sensing the storm
You said a
clouds gathered,
mouthful.
we all know it wasn't no ironic. They wanted this. And it says storm clouds gathering on the horizon, put in the speech at the Republican National Convention on June 14th, 1876. He says, "You have emancipated us. You have, and I thank you for it. You say you have enfranchised us, and I thank you for it. But what is your emancipation? Mm. What is your enfranchisement? What does it all amount to if the black man, after having been made free by the letter of your law, is
Come on.
unable to exercise that freedom? And after having been freed from the slaveholder's lash, he is subject to the slaveholder's shotgun."
Talk, bro.
Mm, mm.
Come on.
And see, the biggest thing that we have to just to touch on real quick, the biggest thing we have to understand with this Emancipation Proclamation with Abraham Lincoln, President Lincoln give, he did not care about freeing the black slaves. He only cared about preserving the Union over the Confederacy. And what we need to understand also is the word emancipation. The word emancipation does not mean freedom. Let's look up the word emancipate
Uh-oh.
real quick so we can give people the true definition. Because a
For
lot of
those
us
who don't,
have that
for
confused.
those who don't know, that's your what moment? That's your moment.
Now, according to Google, emancipate means, now they say set free, but that's not truly what it means. To set free from legal, social, or political restriction. Now look at that. Legal, social, or political restriction, bondage, or the control of another. Now, I don't say set free permanently from anyone, but it says set free from legal, social, or political restrictions, bondage, or the control of another. So now I was so obviously right there you're not fully free.
A lot of
I just
filler
want to throw that out
words.
there. It's a
Sound
lot of
like a
filler
lot of
words.
filler words.
Come on, come on now. Now let's move on. It says, what confounds me is how much longer the rollback of Reconstruction was that Reconstruction itself was the determination of the redeemed South to obliterate any trace of the gains made by free people. In South Carolina, for example, the state university had been integrated during Reconstruction, indeed. Harvard's first black graduate, Richard T. Greener, was a professor there, was swiftly shut down and reopened 3 years later for whites only. The color line remained in place until 1963. Mm. In addition to moves to strip African Americans of their voting rights, Redeemer governments across the South slashed government investments in infrastructure and social programs across the board, including those for regions' first state funded public school systems, a product of Reconstruction. And we know from a fact today that me and Brother Deuce covered way back here about the state of education, that we still are operating in segregated schools. We still have the lack of resources to properly educate our new students and future young youth today. And eventually
Come
we
on
will
now.
get cover that again in a future talk. But moving
Got
right
to.
along, a wave of the state constitutional conventions followed, starting with Mississippi in 1890. These effectively undermined the Reconstruction Amendments, especially the right of black men to vote, which is still going on today, in each of the former Confederate states by 1908. To take one example, whereas in Louisiana, 130,000 black men were registered to vote before the state instituted its new constitution in 1898. By 1904, the number had just been reduced to 1,342. Wow. And at the time, what historian Rayford W. Logan dubbed the nadir of American race relations, the time of political, economic, social, and legal hardening around segregation, widespread violence, and disenfranchisement and lynching coincided with a hardening of racist concept of race. The painfully long period following Reconstruction saw the explosion of white supremacist ideology across an array of media and through an extraordinary variety of all forms, all designed to warp the mind toward white supremacist beliefs. Minstrelsy and racist visual imagery were weapons in the battle over the status of African American in post slavery America. And some continue to be manufactured to this day. Ain't no some. The process of dehumanization triggered a resistance movement. Among a rising generation of the black elite, the resistance was representative after 1895 through the concept of the new Negro, a counter to the avalanche of racist images of black people that proliferated through the Gilded Age of American society in their advertisements, posters, and postcards. Not surprisingly, racist image of black people characterized by exaggerated physical features, the blackest of skin, like we know as blackface, tones of the whitest of eyes, and the reddest of lips were a favorite subject of these multicolored prints during the rollback of Reconstruction and the birth of Jim Crow segregation in the 1890s. All right, and it goes on from there. But I just wanted to touch on that a little bit with that.
That's what's up.
Thank you. But I wanted you to touch on that a lot because we don't discuss a lot what happened during Reconstruction. Now, real quick, I want to talk a little bit about the Free Fist Compromise and how that triggered what caused Reconstruction. And then I want to talk about something that happened during, after the Civil War, which they don't talk about, which is called the Camellia Massacre. And I'm not sure Brother Deuce has heard about it. But this was a massacre that took place right here in Georgia, Camellia, Georgia, that they don't talk about, where black people were trying to vote and come up with ways of how they can become economically empowered. And the white powers that be didn't want to see that. I was going to discuss that and then the Colfax massacre as well. And then if anything else you want to discuss, Brother Deuce.
Okay, yeah,
But
yeah, we good. You flow with your flow.
yes, sir. But this is an article by lwv.org. It says the origin of the Three Fifths Compromise. In 1787, the delegates to the Constitutional Convention found themselves confronted with the question of slavery and how hundreds of thousands of enslaved black people in its new republic would affect the Constitution. Now, just to pause for a second. Now, remember, this was leading up until the Civil War. And mind you, a lot of Northerners and Southerners had a dilemma on their hands because slaves were starting to become more organized and more empowered. So they had to come up with ways of how they could control the slaves and find
Come
out
on.
ways of how they can disenfranchise them. So the Northerners argued that, hey, we got to find some way to try to qualify these slaves because at the end of the day, y'all brought them over here from Africa, other parts of the world to help build our world, and we got to find some way to try to keep them over here, and make them citizens. The South argued, hell no, like these are our property. These are our slaves. We ain't got to do nothing. As long as they build our nice little mansions, feed us our KFC chicken and all the other stuff, we good. We don't need none of that. So they created what we know now today is the so-called Three-Fifths Compromise. So it says in 1787, the delegates to the Constitutional Convention found themselves confronted with the question of slavery and how hundreds of thousands already read that. I'm sorry. The humanity and the rights of these enslaved Americans were not a priority of the delegates as they debated this issue. Rather, their debates centered on if how the enslaved persons would be counted, as I mentioned earlier, when allocating seats in the new House of Representatives. On July 11, 1787, Roger Sherman of Connecticut proposed that only the free inhabitants of each state should count towards appropriateness or distribution of the state of the House of Representatives. Edward Rutledge and Pierce Butler of South Carolina then proposed what became the Free Fist Compromise, suggesting that the House seats be apportioned in proportion to the whole number of white and other free citizens and inhabitants of every age, sex, and condition, including those bound to servitude for terms of years, and three-fifths of all other persons not comprehended in the foregoing description, except Indians not paying taxes in each state. In other words, every white citizen, including indentured service, will be counted as whole people, while black people, on the other hand, will be counted as three-fifths of a person. So, for y'all to
That's
really
crazy.
break that down, this is why whenever you get pulled over by the police or whenever you get inside some courtroom and you want to say, oh, well, I have rights, this is a true testimony to your so called rights and why they don't view us as human beings. And this is not to say that we don't have rights set up, of course, by God Himself, but we have to understand how this society works. This is why they don't want to establish us as American citizens because we only looked at as a fraction of a human being. Now,
Which is crazy. It's
it
crazy.
says Elderbridge Gary, a delegate from Massachusetts and later namesake of the term Gary Mandarin, criticized the proposal, pointing out that because they were legally considered property, enslaved persons had no more reason to be counted for appropriate than cattle or horses, as property should not be represented in the legislature. About a month later, after the issue of appropriate was delegated to the committee for further discussion, the Free Fist Compromise resurfaced. Several delegates from the slave states and southern states in which slavery was legal before the Civil War, led by Pierce Butler of South Carolina, proposed counting enslaved persons as equivalent to free inhabitants of the states. This would mean that enslaved persons will be added to the state's population as though they were free citizens, despite having no voting rights or civil liberties. This would allow slave states to have more power in the House of Representatives without granting enslaved people any rights. And we notice that that's what they're doing now with these political parties. This is what they're doing specifically with the Republican and Democratic parties. They're trying to play on our so called rights as a people, and this is why they want our vote, but they're not
Come on.
offering anything in return to help franchise and solidify Black people. And we keep thinking that if we run to these so-called polls of these different ones without studying the intentions of each candidate and what they're offering to us, we'll get something out of it. Just a little tidbit, though. Now, after further discussion,
Good
the
stuff.
delegates adopted the Free Fist Compromise and move on to other business. Thus, enslaved Americans will be counted towards the electoral population of the states without the right to participate in society or be recognized as citizens. Now, let's look into the effects of the Three Fifths Compromise. The immediate effect of the Three Fifths Compromise was to inflate the power of the Southern states in the House of Representatives and the Electoral College. These were the states in which the vast majority of enslaved persons lived. Enslaved Americans will be counted towards the population of those states without the right to participate in society or be recognized as citizens. And it's still going on today. The first census taken in 1790 after the Constitution's ratification is illustrative. 25.5% of North Carolina's population was enslaved, as were 35.4% of Georgia's, 39.1% of Virginia's, and 43% of South Carolina's. Hmm. Importantly, this inflated power did nothing to advance the power of enslaved people who made it possible. I'm going to read that again. Importantly, this inflated power did nothing to advance the power of the enslaved people who made it possible. Key word, family. Under the Three-Fifths Compromise, these states will receive far more representation than what they have been entitled to if only free inhabitants were counted. Though manipulating the
Mm.
electoral system, the slave states interfered with national politics and diluted the power of the majority of voters while further exploiting enslaved people. During the debate on the 12th Amendment to the Constitution in 1803, Representative Samuel Thatcher of Massachusetts pointed out that counting enslaved persons under the compromise added an additional 13 members from slave states to the House and 18 additional electors. It's no coincidence that for 32 of the first 36 years after the Constitution's ratification, a white slaveholder from Virginia held the presidency. Mhm. And that's Andrew Johnson. While it's important to determine exactly how politics would have been different without the compromise, it is unlikely that without the extra electoral votes and the House seats given to slave states, politicians would have repeatedly enacted laws in slaveholders' interests. And they still did anyway. Among the Compromise of 1820, in which Missouri's admission as a slave state was balanced by Maine's admission as a free state, with slavery permitted south of Missouri's border, there was also a compromise of 1850, which allowed California's admission as a free state, but also enacted the Fugitive Slave Act. And we all know the Fugitive Slave Act was another way of how they could terrorize and capture slaves, all by means of document legal exportation. Eventually, we'll cover that on a separate discussion where I want to discuss that because the Fugitive Slave Act pretty much is your modern day wanted and bounty hunter pictures and pretty much your modern day police of today. But
Teach
eventually,
your
we'll
brother.
cover that another day, which allowed for the kidnapping, like I said, and the reenslavement of people who escaped slavery from free states under the protection of the law, which, like we said, is modern day police.
Come on.
All right. Now, let's see.
This is great info. We can give a round of applause for that so far. Everything is good. Appreciate bro for this
Yes, sir.
dropping these nuggets of wisdom.
Now, it says in America without the Electoral College, our country is closely divided. That's an understatement. The table below
Right.
highlights the margin for the last seven presidential elections. Now, if we look at this chart right here, I'm going to show it to you guys real quick. This is a chart right here that's showing the margin of victory in popular vote in percent. So if you see in 2000 right here, it says 0.51. And in 2004, it went up to 2.47. And in 2008, it went up to 7.26. 2012, 3.86. 2016, 2.09. 2020, 4.45. And then 2 years ago, 2024, 1.47. So it went down.
Start dropping off, didn't it?
Hmm. So if we look at that, that just goes to show you that this whole electoral college is going up and down, up and down. And the largest one was in 7.26, and we all know that why that was in 2008 with the election of President Obama, which we'll
Right.
discuss the presidency of him and what led to a lot of the different policies and other stuff that he promoted as well. Because we have to tell the truth about what President Obama represented and what he did as well, and the other presidents. But
Also,
that'll
most
be a
definitely.
separate discussion. But it says if there were no electoral college given such small margins, candidates from all parties would be incentivized to campaign in every region of the country as every vote would count towards victory with a national popular vote. But we all know that they don't do that. In many instances, the Electoral College incentivizes parties to ignore large swathes of Black, Asian, and Native American voters because the states they live in reliably vote for a certain party. Mhm.
Mm.
These close margins of victory should encourage candidates to connect with and appeal to all voters, not just those in swing states. But we know they do the opposite. That's why we support a national popular vote, in which every person's vote will count equally toward electing the president.
Uh,
Now they say count equally towards electing the president, but let's not forget in 2000 and I think it was 2003 and 2004 with Bush and Gore. Remember, they tampered with the election then, and Gore was supposed to be the prime character of our president, but Bush ended up winning. And let's not forget, even with just recent election with Biden and Trump, there was tampering in that as well. How Donald Trump was our current president became president as well. So we have to look at that family with how they want to say that it's supposed to go to equally towards every person's vote. You have to be able to read between the lines, as me and Brother Deuce have mentioned. Now it says with a national popular vote, parties would be forced to change their behavior to win. Every vote in every state would matter with such close margins. Republicans could no longer ignore the state of California, for example, with its millions of Republican voters. The same might prove true in New York City, where Republicans would need to invest in campaign infrastructure. Having meaningful political opposition in urban areas could also inspire greater accountability from local governments in these states, which have repeatedly failed to address the key issues: homelessness, transportation, and other critical issues. Mhm. Conversely, Democrats will be incentivized to invest in areas like the Black Belt in Alabama or the Mississippi Delta region, which contains millions of Black voters who vote for the party's candidates but are otherwise what? Ignored since they reside in states that would certainly vote for Republicans in the presidential elections. All right. And it goes on from there. But I just wanted to touch on that as well so we understand what happened during the Reconstruction era. And mind you, another thing, which I apologize I didn't mention, with during this time with the Free Fist Compromise up into Reconstruction. Now, during this time with the Reconstruction, we also were developing our own banks, our own houses, our own church, and our own schools. And what led it to the government so-called bailing out was the Freedmen's Bureau. Now, the Freedmen's Bureau was a set of policies that was given to either newly freed slaves to try to help assist them into becoming more successful and more sustainable through that.
come on.
But they were betrayed by the government and by those officials after the abolishment of the Freedmen's Bureau through racist Southern policies, and the money was taken away from the black newly freed slaves and people who were working there, and from some of the white individuals that's helped to try to establish that. And thus, it left black people back on the back burner and back struggling again and facing racial terror. So if we
So,
go to,
hey,
for example, let's go to the Camellia Massacre, which happened right here in Georgia. So it says the Camellia Massacre, which took place on September 19th, 1868, was one of the more violent episodes in Reconstruction Georgia. 2 months earlier, Georgia had fulfilled the requirements of Congress' radical Reconstruction plan and had been readmitted to the Union. Yet in early September, the state legislature expelled 28 newly elected members, 28 newly elected members, because they were at least one-eighth black. Look at that. Because they were one-eighth black. They had a little bit too much Negro in their DNA. Among those who were removed was Southwest Georgia Representative Philip Joyner. On September 19th, Joyner, along with the Northerners Francis F. Putney and William P. Pierce, led a 25-mile march of several hundred blacks and a few whites from Albany to Camellia, the Mitchell County seat, to attend a Republican political rally. I want to touch on something now. Some people say, "Oh, why are they holding a Republican Party? Shouldn't that be all white folks, like all racist white folks?" I want y'all
mm-mm.
to understand during this time,
Tell it. Tell it.
the real Republicans during this time, that was something that we created as black people because we created our own
Yes.
political party. That
Because
was stolen
Democrats.
from us. Come on. That
Because
was stolen
Democrats
from
was
us
the
by white
ones
folks.
that used to tell on. So if you had, for those who don't know, the Democratic Party at that time, that if you had uh an African American person that if or if you know your neighbor was an inhabiting an African American at that time, and if you didn't tell on your neighbor, you there'd be consequences against you. So that was the Democratic Party at the time. So that's when black folks. So the Republican Party as itself as a whole was created for the African American. It ain't of the Republican now, but that's the original part. Think about it. That's why the symbol was an elephant
Mm.
versus I don't really want to get. Oh yeah. So if we really want to get the symbols, that's why it was an elephant. If elephant versus the Democrat symbol was we know what it is. We know what it is for
Teach your brother,
FB
Deuce.
with FB language. We know what it is. Y'all know what animal it is. Y'all can Google it. But that's where it started, huh? Y'all didn't
Yes,
know.
sir.
If y'all didn't know in the comments, give me a what? All right, so that's where it came from. So yeah, okay, continue, bro. I just had to put that out there.
No,
That's
good
that.
information. Thank you, bro. Thank you. That deserves applause right there. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it
But
is.
that's the thing right there that we have to pay attention to. And just real quick, and I'll dive more back into the article. That is the reason why many of our ancestors drove into the Republican Party. If you watch, one day I'll show a clip of. If you watch the Roots: The Next Generation series, and if you look at Tom Harvey and what he was doing during those times, he was an advocate of the Republican Party until he saw the hypocrisy of the black Republican Party there when they were trying to advocate more for the white Democrats. Now, the white Democrats of those times were, like Brother Deuce mentioned, they were the racists, the ones who were part of the Ku Klux Klan and all other types of policies to disenfranchise black people. It wasn't until much later when white Southerners switched parties from the Democrats to the Republicans to try to disenfranchise black people. But we'll talk about that in a separate time in a separate discussion. Now, it says Mitchell County whites, however, were determined that no Republican rally would occur. As marchers entered the courthouse square in Camellia, white stationed in various storefronts opened fire, killing about a dozen and wounding possibly 30 others. Mm. As marchers returned to Albany, hostile whites assaulted them from several miles. News of Camellia massacre flashed over telegraph wires and newspapers across the nations reported it. Republican and Democrats used the massacre to fortify their positions on Reconstruction in the 1868 presidential campaign. The violence at Camellia intimidated some African Americans who stayed home on Election Day. In other places, like Albany, white leaders committed fraud at the polls, deliberately misplacing many black votes or changing them to Democratic ones, like they do today. White Democrats, then the racial minority in Southwest Georgia, carried the election. Republican members of the Congress were appalled at the violence and the fraud and required Georgia to once more undergo military rule and radical reconstruction. The Camellia Massacre remained part of Southwest Georgia's hidden past until 1998, when Camellia residents publicly acknowledged the massacre for the first time and commemorated its victims. They probably gave them a little statue. But that was what happened, like I said, over in Camellia, man. Now, me and Brother Deuce can attest to that. We never heard of it this growing up inside going to Georgia public schools. I know for a fact I did. But this is some of the things that they don't want for us to know, which happened with our ancestors during this time. When they were trying to build and develop better economic plans for our people during this time. And like I mentioned before, we were the ones that were controlling the Republican Party during that time. So we had political power that would could use to disenfranchise any white supremacists during that time. And that's why they want to turn that around by starting these massacres and these other type of lynchings and other ways to try and disenfranchise the black man and black woman from reaching these different plateaus of success. All right, moving right along. Let's look at now. This is some of the schools. Now, remember, I mentioned that education during Reconstruction, we had over 600 schools, 600 schools during after Reconstruction area. that they deliberately destroyed. Now, this article is mentioning particularly right here in Georgia, but it also carries over to every state in the U.S. as well. So this is GeorgiaEncyclopedia.org. It says Freedmen's education during Reconstruction. For the first days of freedom, formerly enslaved Georgians demanded formal education. Legislation passed in 1829 had made it a crime to teach enslaved laborers to read, and further white attitudes discouraged legacy with Georgia's small free black community. Yet when schools for free people opened in 1865, they were crowded to overflowing. Mm. Within a year of black freedom, at least 8,000 formerly enslaved African Americans were attending schools in Georgia. 8 years later, black schools struggled to contain nearly 20,000 students. While Northern private benevolence in the federal government deserved credit for aiding black education in Georgia during Reconstruction, the primary impetuous and sustaining force came from what? Our people, states, African Americans. The first post war schools were former clandestine schools operating openly by January 1865. Literate black men and women opened new self sustaining schools. Northern Freedmen Aid organizations began establishing schools in mid 1865. Of the nearly 50 aided school societies working in freedmen education in the 1960s, only seven were active in Georgia. Only seven.
Come on.
These benevolent organizations raised funds, recruited teachers, and attempted to keep the future of the free people before the Northern public. Meanwhile, Congress created the Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, popularly, known as the Freedmen's Bureau in 1865. Now, mind you, I mentioned about the Freedmen's Bureau Act and how they created this act to try to so-called elevate black people. And in this book that me and Brother Deuce discussed last time on our podcast, this is about the betrayal of the Freedmen's Bureau Bank. Now, eventually, I'm going to recover this so we can dive more into it. Maybe, hopefully, maybe in the next coming weeks or months, if given time. But this book highlights exactly how we tried to create our own entrepreneurship, our own
Come on.
nations and towns, and they deliberately through racist policies and racist tactics to try to disenfranchise and disempower black people. But this is a really good book, family. I would recommend you getting this. I believe it's on Amazon still. I have to detail the price and everything on it, but get this in your hands, family. Teach this to your children because they don't want us to know this. But moving right along, though it did not hire teachers or operate schools itself, the Bureau assisted the aid society in meeting the burgeoning African American demand for education. It rented buildings for schoolrooms, provided books and transportations for teachers, superintended the schools, and offered military protection for students and teachers against the opponents of black literacy. Even when the Bureau and the Northern Aid did reach into Georgia, however, the Freedmen's themselves provided a substantial amount of support for the schools. They paid monthly tuition fees, raised funds for
Mm.
teachers, room and board, and purchased lots for schoolhouse. Purchased lots for schoolhouses. Donated material and labor to build them. See what we was doing, family? We doing this all after being slaves, family. And let's look at that. We had nothing. So there's no excuse for us today when we say we don't have money. We have the money. We just don't have good habits. Now it says until 1870, while sustaining their own schools, the freedmen, nearly half of the state's population, were also required to pay school taxes for privileges from which they were excluded. What does
Mm.
that sound like today?
Mm.
Adult
Mm.
freedmen sought the benefits of literacy for themselves as avidly as they sought schools for their children. In winter and in the slack times between planting and harvesting, fathers and mothers resided beside their children in freedmen's schools to meet the demand for education from adults who could not attend regular classes. The teachers organized night schools and Sabbath day schools. Throughout Reconstruction, teachers reported that the adults often constituted one-third of their students. Adult students were also served by formal secondary and higher education institutions, ranging from normal schools for teaching training in Macon, Columbus, and Savannah. Preparatory schools attached to the college and other colleges themselves, which we know as Atlanta University or Clark College, which we know now as Clark Atlanta University. and the Augusta Institute, which we later know now as Morehouse College. So now it says the state in the black education. Before the Civil War from 1861 to 65, Georgia had no system of public education. Its school tax assisted poor white children with tuition at private schools. No surprise there, they still doing it. In 1870, the state made its first effort to create public schools and found that in the black community, at least, the rudiments of such a system were already in place. Mhm. Reconstruction area legislation required segregated schools and allowed discrimination in distribution of school funds to white and black schools. Northern aid to free men's education declined just as Georgia began to develop a dual system of education. The Freedmen's Bureau closed its office in 1870. See, that aid societies retrenched in the same year. They concentrated their efforts in Georgia's largest cities and shifted their attention to teacher education, convinced that the best means of assuring a future for Southern Black education was through the preparation of teachers for Black schools. From 1870 until well into the 20th century, white Georgia sought to limit public funding for Black education. And remember, me and Brother Duce discussed that with the Common Core understanding
Yep,
of education
that
about
was
how they're
great.
continuing to limit the advancement of Black students in particular with Black education, and how they create all these different types of policies and all these different types of teaching methods and laws to try to disenfranchise and hinder Black students from reaching the education and potential that they need. Now it says local districts refuse to support public secondary education for African American students to this day. Teachers in Black schools receive lower salaries than in white schools. Well, regardless of the teacher's race, and construction and maintenance of Black schools were neglected. The state would not provide public higher education to its former bondsmen until it founded Georgia State Industrial College, which we know now as Savannah State College, which was in 1891. By the end of the Reconstruction, the free people of Georgia had built the foundations of a system of universal schooling. Native and Northern teachers had taught thousands of formerly enslaved African Americans to read and write. Three colleges kept alive the promise of higher education. In the final analysis, however, the free people were too poor and assistance from the federal government and Northern agencies far too paltry to have much effect. Mm. It is unlikely that more than 10% of the state's African American population could find a seat in the schoolhouse during Reconstruction. That's the end of the article. But just look at
Wow.
that, family. Now, these were policies that were put inside 1868 up until 1870. And mind you, I was discussing about the Freedmen's Bureau Act. But notice what they want to keep trying to downplay, though. Despite the lack of aid, despite the lack of support, Black people still was able to pay the tuition and the fees,
Come
still
on.
was able to give their children and themselves the amount of time and money and the aid they need to keep the school doors open long enough for them to receive the education to try to advance themselves. And through every clever tap that they destroyed what they had built from there. But just imagine that about that family. You could coming out of slavery. And we all know from the stories that we heard from our ancestors that they left with nothing but the clothes on the back and maybe if they had shoes on their feet. And that's it. No money in their pocket, nothing.
Right. Come on.
And they're able to do this in a little over probably what 50 to 60 years and able to build this out of nothing. This is why we coined the term making nothing from something. And we like to say we got it out the mud because that's a testimony to us and our origins.
Right.
Because it says inside the Bible that we are made and fashioned out of black mud inside the
Mhm.
book. What is that telling you, us, family? That we are from God and we can turn nothing from something because we came from nothing and God willed us into existence.
We'll take nothing and create something out of nothing.
Come on now.
Every
So
time
tell
we,
them, Brother Deuce.
every time we come up against a obstacle, all we do is this:
That's right.
knock it down, shoot it down.
Come on
That's
now.
us. So yeah, man, this was awesome. I know we still got. I think we got like 11 minutes left, but this is an awesome pop up. Let's give a round of applause for brother. That awesome knowledge, awesome feed.
Thank you, thank you.
That was awesome. That was awesome. But the poll is in now, so I got a poll up. Um so I'm gonna try to relaunch it for those who may see it later. Let us know if you enjoyed the Duce discussions on Facebook instead of in the IG on Facebook. But like I said before, y'all, this is the educational platform. Duce Discussions. This is education. Now y'all see me with the other one. Now that's biblical. That's on TikTok. But right here, I said it was only right to do it. It's about time for us to bring back a Duce Discussions, man. We might have to do this again.
Yes,
Um,
indeed.
uh, maybe next holiday or maybe in a couple weeks or so. So, y'all keep and let us know, man. Let us know how you feeling this. So I'm trying to get all the stuff um all the bugs get kicked out and stuff. Trying to see how we can do to enhance and advance um this. Like I said, this was a pop up for those who've been rocking with us. Your boys has came back to the screen. Screen came together one more good time, one more time for the
One
people
more again.
to educate the masses, one discussion at a
Yes,
time.
indeed.
One discussion at a time. And if I can still remember it, everybody, if you didn't know, do y'all remember what are the three branches of government? Yep, that's it. What is the three branches of government? Y'all don't forget that: judicial, executive,
Legislator.
and legislative.
Come on
Slave,
now.
huh? Huh? Come on now. We ain't gonna forget. We can't forget that. We can't forget. We might have been absent for a while, but we can't forget that, man. Can't forget that. This was awesome. This is one of them feel
It
good
was
moments.
beautiful.
Like, dude, like, man, it's been a while. It's been a while, but this felt like we never stopped. And I'm telling you now, man, we got so much stuff for if we could just, man, we got something that if we decide to do a whole new season, y'all, we got it. We got it. So we got so many topics that we can talk about, especially bringing back Black 365 and dealing with some people who are still living. Ruby Bridges is. Anybody know that Ruby Bridges is still living amongst us? Uh, the one, if y'all don't know, check out the history of Ruby Bridges. The one who these grown Caucasian persuasion people were spitting and throwing stuff at this little girl for her
Mm-hmm.
going to school to gain an education. That's all
Mm-hmm.
she wanted to do, to earn an education. And I'm speaking to you, some of y'all, you take education for granted. Don't take it for granted. Go ahead and get your education you need, knock it out, get on through. Educate yourself with other stuff too. They won't tell you nowadays, but I'm gonna say it. Back in the day, I'll probably tell how old I am. I'm in my 40s. So back in the day, you didn't hear too much of college. You heard a lot of trades, if
Mm-hmm.
that. So if you are gonna go to a college, that would be like what's called a trade school, learning HVAC or learning with cars, different stuff like that. So you can have a trade. But then I know we got 7 minutes, but the whole topic this could be a part one and part two for me
Oh, we
and bro.
definitely got
We
to
can
do a
talk
part
about
two.
the state of education. For those who don't know, we literally had a what 2 or 3 episode about the state of education, the
Mm-hmm.
state of education in the United States, and we broke it down in states. So just think about it. Then see, you didn't want me to tell because the church is making me lose my thought. Um, But the state of education, how education is so important nowadays in learning. Gosh, what was it? It's so important. It's so important to learn what you can, because a lot of times, if you really want to know the truth, they put it in a book or they put it in a movie, but they put it in movies that you don't think about. Now, I know
Mm.
what brother was talking about, how they was figuring out how the African Americans as a was like, okay, 3/5 of a person, and they was trying to figure out how they can control them, and it was just a little bit of them. Anybody remember? If y'all have a chance, remember the movie Ants. I'm gonna tell it. If you ever got a chance to look at the movie, I know it's a cartoon, but look at the movie Ants. I believe it's Ants. I don't think it's a book, Life. I think it's the movie Ants. And it talks about how the grasshopper is supposed to have the power. It's just a few of them. But they said the ants, if the ants only knew their power,
Mm-hmm.
uh, if the ants knew their power and that they're stronger in numbers, if they only knew their power, they can overtake the government. The grasshoppers represent the government, and the ants represented American workers, the blue collar.
Mm-hmm.
It was so crazy. Y'all need to look at that movie. They be hiding stuff, and I don't think that's a I don't think Ants was a Disney movie, because
No, I
you
don't think
start seeing
Ants
it.
was.
Yeah, it was like imagination or whatever, illumination or whatever, because they was it was a lot of movies they were telling the truth about, but they were putting it in movie form or in cartoon form that you didn't realize. Even the
Mm-hmm.
stuff with certain islands, excuse me, certain islands that me and brother we covered that about 3 or 4 years ago. We covered
Mm-hmm.
about them
Which
secret
we will
islands and
recover
secret.
again and revisit.
Yeah, we covered that. We covered about how we covered about they was thinking about the price of melanin. We talked about that. It's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of stuff that we covered. We covered a lot of stuff that we don't mind going back over again. See, gonna re- I can't believe it was that over that quick. So, but yeah, I'm gonna relaunch that poll one more time. So y'all just let us know how you feeling the podcast. This is Duce Discussions. So Duce Discussions, y'all see the symbol? Y'all see the different symbol? So that's Duce Discussions. So that's us. That's me, Deuce Wilson, and the Lyrical Undertaker. That's what we're gonna dive in and dive in. Oh yeah, I remember now talking about a trade. Back in the day, there was where you go to school for learning HVAC stuff like that. And a lot of times is when you get out of school or you went into the mill. Mill was like the warehouse or whatever. You made your money through there because you learned with your hands. You learned a trade. So when all else fails, you knew how to do something. Hey, I know how to do something with air conditioning, HVAC. I know how to work on cars. I know dealing with housing. I know how to do with dealing with finances. Still something home. They used to have home ec, and it wasn't just sexes. It wasn't just for girls. It was for men too, for young guys who want to learn how to cook and stuff too. So because you got to learn how to cook on your own too as well. Learn a craft. But now what they was doing is, oh gosh, yeah, I'm gonna say it anyway. But what happened was they saw it was more money in college. Like, okay, let's send these people to college and fluff these college classes that don't make that has the children paying for classes that they don't even need or that's not even connected um to their trade or what they're trying to do, but they make you take it so to fluff up your degree. But it's not
Come
real
on.
degree. It's just fluff it up, and it costs. Especially if you got financial aid or whatever, you got to pay those student loans back, and that's money. That's
Mm-hmm.
money. So if they would have gave you exactly what you needed, if you did HVAC and just focus on HVAC classes, it would cost a lot less money. But they want to feed you with some stupid classes that don't make any sense, that have nothing to do with the craft you're trying to do, even
Teach them.
culinary. That's why you see nowadays you see people having culinary schools. It's just all that is, all the stuff you seeing now is nothing but the old school. When I say old school, it's nothing but old school trade, trade school. They just bringing them
Mm-hmm.
back slowly, but they renaming them. So you see trade school with cooking and with auto stuff. It's nothing but with trades. They was doing cosmetology before cosmetology was doing cosmetology. I forgot what they used to call it, but they used to
Peace,
have
bro.
trade schools instead of. I mean, college is cool. Nothing wrong with college. College is cool, but the thing is that they fluffed college. They put unnecessary classes that you don't need, especially for the African American student. And then they want to take money from these HBCUs that are trying to make it. And then the crazy thing is, other ethnicities are, I don't want to say invading, but invading the HBCUs. I'm gonna try to find a nicer word for it. Integrating. Yeah, and, integrating HBCUs and being a part of that culture, the HBCU culture,
Mm-hmm.
the black college culture. And there are some, but it's sad to say that some students, like if you're in sports, they're looking to go to the big colleges only for big sports, like football, major football, stuff like that, because the NIL and stuff like that. But if you're going to get major in like dentistry and stuff like that, they are mostly flooding those HBCUs. And then what they're doing is they're trying to take funding. Uh, they're trying to take funding. Hang on, I almost stopped my time. I have 3 more minutes. But they're taking funding from these HBCUs, and you don't have a lot of millionaires that's going to sow into these HBCUs, and they try to take money from them, and they're like, "Oh, we'll sow into the big colleges, to the um um PWIs." Y'all don't know what PWI? Y'all look it up. I don't want to get flagged on here. I may say something, but y'all know, if y'all don't know what a PWI, I just base primarily institute. Yeah, yeah. But anyway, so that's places like Alabama, and and stuff like that. So using Florida, Florida Gators, whatever they're doing. But anyway,
Ohio
the
State.
big college, what I'm saying, big colleges, Auburn, you know, Syracuse, kind of. But anyway, but like the bigger colleges, but HBCUs is that's where you can get a degree in a lot of stuff, and you can actually more focus on what you need to get, and it's I guess you'd say it was less fluff. And then, so, because at one part it was a money scam. Everybody was like, hey, you can get this, you can get a laptop, go to college, you can get this, but then they give you classes that's about 1,000. Your books is about $500, $600, and that's going against your stuff. And then your classes is broken up into two sections, and each section is $1,000, and hopefully you pass
Mm-hmm.
that. And no $1,000 are build up. I'm like, man, I gotta pass this, and then that's $1,000 you have spent on a class that you might not even need.
Yes,
They
indeed.
might be telling you, you might be looking, you might be going to uh study psychology, but then you want to take a class in deforestation. What in the world? So yeah, so like bring back the trade. I'm for it. Bring back the trade schools. Bring
Yes,
back the
indeed.
trade schools, because that way you could when stuff go when they said when mess hit the fan, you'll be able to maintain. You had a craft. You know how to do something. You knew a carpenter. You know what I'm saying? You knew a carpenter. You knew a locksmith. What happened to the
Mm-hmm.
locksmith?
A
You had a
plumber,
locksmith. You
electrician.
had masonry, brick mason. That's what it's called, brick mason. You had brick masons and different stuff like that. What happened to the trade? Think about it, y'all. How how did the trade schools just all of a sudden disappear? They didn't disappear. What they did was they fluffed up with different stuff, tried to try to disguise or distract us, just like Big Pharma. Let me shut up. But anyway, uh, did with some other stuff. But notice how they'll pull a distraction. We've seen stuff recently. If they want to get something through, they'll make a distraction. Sometimes it's even overseas. Yeah, I said it. But sometimes it's overseas distraction that they want us to focus on. And next thing you know, or you'll see it on the platforms, or the news will talk about it, but while something is going on under or behind the scenes. So
Mm-hmm.
you just gotta pray and ask for God. It's like, hey, what's going on? Just keep like whatever it is, just keep me and my family through it. Whatever it is, because we never know, especially if we in the end time. So, you know, I'm excited. I don't want to talk about, but this is information that needs to be known too, because like I said, our people perish from the lack of knowledge. So, like I said, learn some like if you have a younger generation, tell them about trades, learn about getting trades. Um, uh, uh, right now, my daughter actually just received a book dealing with finances, learning the basics of living and stuff. We
Mm.
talked about that as well, family, about the basics, learning how to maintain household, different stuff like that. Books of that they don't teach for some reason. Well, we know what reason in school that they don't give you a structure. They don't tell you about taxes and learn about checks. They don't teach you about what an IUL is, well, life insurance policy that you can borrow against while you're living, and
Come
de-
on.
and they don't tell our people about what a trade line is, a trade line. And for those if what I just said sounds foreign, then you know they did their part. Because a trade line, for those who don't know, a trade line is basically a person or entity. You see these nowadays. There is me and bro was talking years ago about trade lines, and I've actually, I'm blessed. We if we can actually be each other's trade line if we get rid of the crab in the barrel mentality. Because what it is trade line is basically, even if you want to bless somebody, you can pay somebody who has a higher or much better credit than you. Say, for instance, you got a four something. Let's just give you an example. You got a four something or five something, and you can't get a credit, and it's hard for you to get the credit. You can pay somebody. This is a gym, so gym alert, gym alert, gym
Listen up,
alert,
fam.
gym alert. I don't know if I could. What's my gym alert? But it's a gym alert. If you have a person and they know you have a good character, if you pay them, give them a love offering, or give them you can and say, hey, can you put me on your credit? Guess what? They can put you on, as long as if they're a good person of credit, if they pay their bills on time, their credit card bills and whatever's on time, what they can do is they can put you on as a user, but not card. You see what I'm saying? You won't
Mm.
receive the card, but they can put you on as a user. And once they put you on as a user, then their credit is your credit. And so the more they continue to make payments and on time payments, and it's helping your credit at the same time. So it's building your credit while you do nothing but just paying them. And now the same thing I talk, this crazy how some stuff we laugh at, because the same stuff I've talked to others about and people about is, the irony of it is they have apps that do it now. They have an app that you literally think about it. They have an app that instead of somebody they have an app that you apply for a certain amount of credit and you pay it off. You don't get to use it. So say for instance, you get approved for $750 worth of credit. So they give you a bill. So they just they get you make you an authorized user, and the app you pay. Say for instance, they give you a credit of $700. You paid it off, but you paying an app to help your credit, and then now the stuff that it goes, you can get this card to um you get this card and it help you. Man, all you gotta do is get a high yielding account. Lord, It's so much stuff out here. It's get your get your IUL account, get your trust, family. We're gonna cut out that. Let's work on generational wealth. What's going on, my brother? Said authorized user. Uh, we should be focusing on learning trust. Learn what they tried to keep away from us. Learn about trust. Learn about three people who started the trust, who's going to take on the day-to-day maintenance of the trust. And there's one more person. It slipped my head, but focus on trust. That's some things we need to focus on. Cause guess what? I'll put it like this: if Mimo decide to give you the house and Mimo leave, guess what? If they do it like the old days, instead of a good thing, it's a bad thing because you have to pay all those taxes, and so that's a
Hmm.
burden. Versus you can take your house. Oh Lord, if I'm talking too much, you can um you can actually put your house and everything you own into a trust,
Hmm.
and you can actually borrow against that money and trust in your family. Trust from people. Put some people
Come
who
on,
gonna
brother
have your
Deuce.
back and put them in the trust and have some beneficiaries of the trust, and you can generate and create generational wealth. I said if I
Hmm.
knew this when I had the funds, oh trust me. And once it's restored, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. So, like, I want to help my brothers and my sisters. It's time to stop all the crab in the barrel treatment. Let's work on building. Just like, first of all, I can't end this live without giving a shout out. Y'all thought I forgot. Shout out to Freedom, Georgia. Freedom, Georgia is still thriving.
Yes,
If y'all don't know
indeed.
who Freedom, Georgia is, imagine 19 black families. I think it's 40 now, bro. I think it's 40 families now. Instead of 19, it's 40 families developed and bought the land to create their own schools, their own Black Wall Street. Boy, we got a lot to talk about. Create they it was they're bringing forth their own modern day Black Wall Street. I wish we had more time to really just get into it because we got so this. I'm so excited, y'all. This Duce Discussions, man. We this education, if we can give it, I can give it out. We can give it out, just helping each other. Helping each other grow. Hey, like we said, voting at your local chapter is important. It's important. Voting local, making sure you putting the right people in charge. It's okay. Sometimes they try to brainwash and say, "Hey, worry about federal," but then you complain. But what's really going on is local.
Come on.
I might be talking too much, bro. I might be talking too much, bro.
You teach it, brother Deuce. Man,
I might be
family.
talking too much. So
This has been beautiful, man. We appreciate brother Deuce and all his hard and tireless work to keep this platform running, even in my absence. But family, we're gonna recover this before because, like brother Deuce said, it's so much knowledge that we have to impart and that we need to know. But you also, our audience have to do this as well. Like being brother Deuce can give you these topics, all day. But if you're not imparting this knowledge with your neighbor, then we can't, help create the community like Freedom,
right.
Georgia, and other places.
And we'd love
You
to
know.
have guests on. So feel
Oh yeah.
free. Feel free. We'll get you on here. Talk. Talk. Hey, shed some light on the conversation. Join the conversation. Y'all saw the flyer. Join the conversation. Huh? So this has been another. Man, I enjoyed this, man.
Yes, indeed.
Been some been some nuggets been dropped, man. So man, it's one of them, man. It's one of them, man. If y'all don't understand the excitement me and bro got about this whole thing, man. If y'all don't understand. Y'all don't understand about. It's been a long time coming, but it ain't like nothing changed, man. So,
Yes, indeed.
but yeah, man. For on the ones and twos, we calling it a episode, man. Um, I'm one of your hosts, Deuce Wilson, and my bro.
Local Undertaker, man. The family, thank you again for a beautiful night with me and my brother. Stay tuned. We will have updates on when the next episode. Hopefully, we'll do a part two to this, and dive more deep into this topic and keep a lookout. Like Brother Duce said, we want to have special guests on. We want to discuss more topics. Just please just offer your support in any way you can, family, to help keep this movement going on. Because you know our motto here, Duce Discussions, each one teach one.
Hey, and oh yeah, appreciate y'all answering the poll. So we got a yes, ladies and gentlemen. We got a yes. They loving the Duce Discussions. So hey, we're gonna try to put some stuff together, man, and come forth. Like I said, expanding the mind of the masses, one conversation at a time.
At a time.
Family, salute. Y'all be blessed, be safe, and
Peace,
happy
y'all.
holidays.
Yes,
And
indeed.
keep learning. There it is.
Yes, sir.